Welcome to Bar Fantasy Baseball Podcast, Triple Play Edition. This is our June Triple Play Edition. We got some heavy hitters here tonight. We got Justin Mason, we got Ryan Bloomfield, and Steve. We got Steve. Steve Paulo.
Steve Paulo, there you go.
I actually love your last name, Paulo. I'm going to call you Paulo for the next hour. I kind of think it's pretty badass.
That's fine.
I'm good with that?
I'm good. Let's roll.
Hey,
it gives him some credibility as just some random Steve. So that's right.
Well, there's so few of them out there.
Steve, I think a lot of our listeners are familiar with your other opponents tonight. Okay,
Yeah,
so let's start with you and your introduction. I'm really curious about your Stomper projections and how that's playing out so far 2 months into the season.
Okay, well, so I'm Steve Paulo. How you doing? I'm the founder of Friends with Fantasy Benefit. Wait, no, that's not me. That's the other guy here. I've created a couple of projection systems: Stomper projections and Tommy projections. Stomper is the player projection, and I haven't really been tracking exactly how well it's doing. I know there are some players that it likes, and I have, and am sad that I do. So it's not great. It was all in on Luis Castillo, for instance, and we all know how that's gone. Tommy is doing a little better outside of the Boston Red Sox. I actually think that a lot of its selections have been good. That's a system that projects teams at the team level and then tells you which side of the Vegas over-under wins totals you should have bet, and makes a bet essentially at the beginning of every season. And it's actually doing quite well. Again, outside of the fact that the Red Sox are scorching hot, and Tommy thought that they would be cellar dwellers. So outside of that, it's going pretty good.
I kind of agreed with Tommy on that. I didn't see this happening at all. The pitching's holding up. We're going to talk about some of that a little bit later. Ryan, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. How you been?
Great. Just trying to go with the wins the first couple months here. It's been up and down fantasy season so far, but glad to be on here with you guys tonight.
Always up and down. Always up and down.
Always.
In baseball, fantasy baseball. Justin and I were just talking about before we went live. It's part of the fun, right? It's this weird thing, this weird just love for the game. Justin, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I always love coming on and chatting, and I'm ready to win. I'm here to win.
That's what I wanted to hear. Some passion.
Feed me chicken.
What the listeners don't know is Steve is already, or Paulo's already got 5 points down because pushing us back 15 minutes. So I'm feeling good too. Feel like I have a better chance.
For the audience, just to let you know, they've all taken points away from me because I was putting my children to bed. So it's the good father discount off of my score, the penalty.
Let's not worry about the reasons, Paulo. You showed up late, man.
Jeez.
I gave my kids ice cream and told them to just have fun.
That's a dad. That's a great dad right there. 10 points.
Boom.
Let me frame it up a little bit. This is fantasy baseball, similar to the Around the Horn. Okay, we're going to have a good time, but it's fantasy baseball for points. We got a round table here. We're going to talk about all things that have happened in the first couple months, but kind of focus on the last 30 days, what happened in May for the most part. I'm going to arbitrarily award points, and we'll have a champion at the end of the show. That champion will go forward. We had Art Little Cheesecake from Triple Play Fantasy. He dominated the brothers early in April show. And then we had Aaron Pags of the Bullpen Brothers. He did great. He did his homework, and he knocked it out of the park in May for that episode. That was a lot of fun. But I think if there's not any questions, we'll go ahead and get started. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Awesome. I think one of the biggest things going forward, and we're going to talk about it in fantasy baseball, Twitter is going to investigate nonstop. It's goop or not to goop, right? It's happening, okay? MLB is locking down, supposedly. We saw it potentially in Garrett Cole. Justin, I'd like you to address this. Did you see the spin rate of Garrett Cole's latest outing? Are you concerned? Is it an anomaly? What do you think about this going forward?
I mean, I think this is pure 100 grade bullshit that MLB is trying to distract from the fact that they changed the ball this year, and that is causing a whole different game that we're playing in 2021 as opposed to this game we've been playing the last 3 years. And they're doing everything they can to distract from it. This is a poor decision. because everybody is still going to try and use stuff. They're just going to try to become a little bit more creative. And I think batters want pitchers to use this stuff. They don't want to get hit by these balls coming at them 99 miles an hour. It's just horseshit is what it is. And I wish MLB would just let things happen and not worry so much about this trivial stuff that really doesn't affect the game from a popularity standpoint, and try to focus on bringing more fans into the game in the best way they can.
Do you in some way think this is like MLB trying to gain leverage in the upcoming CBA?
I don't know what the end game is for this. It really makes no sense. But this is what MLB does, right? MLB has a ton of problems from, a publicity standpoint. And what they always do is try to fix something that's not necessarily broken. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing MLB come in and go, we need to, make sure these guys aren't cheating. No one cares about a little bit of pine tar. As long as you're not making it obvious, like Pineda on your neck and stuff, it should be absolutely fine. Like I said, I think most batters are fine with it as long as it's not egregious. It's been a part of the game since the beginning of the history of the game. So why are you messing with it? It's just so silly.
Steve, Justin's saying it's a little bit of pine tar, but in the latest Sports Illustrated article, it came out the other day. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read it. They were talking about teams being able to palm a baseball. It was so damn sticky. Did you have a chance to read that at all?
I missed that, but I did see the picture of Yadier Molina with the ball just stuck to his catcher gear there. I don't know how long ago that was, but I think Justin's right in some sense. I think that it is, if it's not total bullshit, it is overblown. And I think even more importantly, it's an example, yet another example of the fact that Rob Manfred just hates baseball. I don't understand why this guy is in charge of a sport that he clearly despises. Every single change that has come over the last few years, it's like, who does this help? Who likes this better? What is the improvement here, right? This runner on second and extras and, the change in the ball. Oh, yeah, I sure am glad there aren't as many home runs this year. Sure am glad that, we've now, diluted the value of a no-hitter to the point that, Spencer friggin' Turnbull has thrown a no-hitter. This is not helping anyone. Who are they helping?
I'm on board with Paulo here. I don't understand the motive behind MLB. They literally came out and said it. That's a complete anomaly. We know that, Ryan. What is the deal here? What are they thinking going forward?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing is the intention versus does this thing actually have teeth? Because I don't know if you guys remember, the week before opening day, MLB kind of made the same exact announcement that they're going to be cracking down on substances and I remember looking up spin rates from 2019 versus 2020, looking at the guys who crept up that board. And then I just did the other day, since that Sports Illustrated article came out, I looked at 2020 spin rates league-wide by pitch versus by month in 2021. Spin rates have actually gone up every month since in 2021. So if MLB is actually enforcing this, we're not seeing it in the data at all. So is it window dressing? Is it? Yeah, it's an interesting point. Is this future leverage to somehow pin this on the players for CBA next year? I don't know. I mean, the one thing where I'll kind of deviate from Justin and Steve is I'd love to see more balls in play. I mean, we're going a little bit farther off, but pitching has gotten so damn good the last few years, just in velocity and movement and pitches. It's so hard to hit the ball that everything's become a strikeout or a walk, or with the ball in 2019, at least a home run. I would not mind seeing fewer spin, fewer movement on some of these breaking pitches, just so we see some more balls and play, more action on the field. So it's, so far I have not seen anything in the data on teams actually cracking down. It's just funny that Joe West makes an example of Giovanni Gallegos, of all people, to take his hat and make him put on a new hat. I don't think that's the problem. And I don't think it should be on on Joe West to enforce that. So far to me, it also just seems like window dressing. I have not seen anything in the data so far from a spin rate or movement standpoint to suggest that the movement and pitches have gone anything but harder to hit so far this year.
Thank you for referencing that tweet. That was good. That was perfect. I saw that yesterday. Steve, we did see it from Garrett Cole, like 100 rotations less in his latest outing. Now, that's very granular. It's one outing. It's going to be interesting to see if he bounces back or not. I think it was Greg Jewett tweeted out a week ago that Craig Kimbrell was down just a hair. It was only about 40 rotations. So we're not talking about a whole lot there. It's still early. So is this going to be like some fantasy baseball investigation every single time out?
God, I hope not.
Yeah.
Like, that's not
same.
That's not what I'm here to do. I like playing the game, man. I don't want to I'm not sitting here measuring. Look, I'm an analytics guy. Obviously, I do projections. I'm an A's fan, so I buy into the whole Billy Bean Moneyball crap, right? So, but if you actually make me get a tape measure out to figure out like exactly how much, or like I got to get my gyroscope to like know what I don't know, man. Like there is a point of measurement, not where it's not useful, but where the differences become differences without distinctions. And it's almost like, Garrett Cole's value as a fantasy asset is not like tied to the exact spin rate. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't, affect how his performance goes, but like, for one thing, I guess my question back would be to anyone asking this, not just to you, but to anyone, would be, what do you expect the fantasy manager to do about it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, even if you could figure out like, oh, well, there's this difference. And it's like, so what are you going to do? You're going to sell Cole for what? Like what are you getting back in a trade for Garrett Cole where the other guy, both teams are sort of happy with the deal. And, if anything, it's like, well, did you trade for like Bieber or Bauer, and aren't their spin rates just as suspect these days? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, what a weird thing to think about from a fantasy manager's perspective. I get that it's an interesting conversation and an interesting sort of thing to dig into just from a pure analytics standpoint. But if fantasy managers are trying to make decisions based on that, first of all, you're not sitting Garrett Cole, so stop even thinking about that. But even if you're trying to like, I'm going to offload these sort of spin rate casualties, good luck, I guess. I don't know why that would come into to be the thing you do.
Well, especially because like, how do you know who is guilty of this and who isn't? Because as far as we can tell, everybody's doing this, right? Like there's maybe, 5% of the league who's not doing this. And so like, how do you formulate like how much to take off of Garrett Cole versus how much to take off of Trevor Bauer versus how much to take off of John Gant? Like there's no way of like figuring out this. This is like the same thing when we didn't know how the ball was going to play this year. People are like, well, how do you put that in your projections? I was like, I'm just going to draft talent. Like, I mean, it's at some point, like, there's things that I can control and there are things that I can't control. And as I get more information and as data comes out, I'll adjust things. But, like, there's no way of predicting any of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the takeaway that I have, too. Like, Bauer and Cole, everyone talks about. I mean, you think spin rate, you think Bauer, Cole. Like, those are the two kind of scapegoats almost, when really everyone's doing it. So to everyone else's point, like, how do you, from a fantasy standpoint, from a takeaway standpoint, like, if everyone's doing it, how do you differentiate, Giolito from Cole from John Gant? To me, and I haven't totally diving in on everything, but I don't know how you differentiate.
There's no market inefficiency to exploit with this. It's just, there's just not.
You guys must have done podcasts before. You guys are totally doing segues right into all of my notes. I didn't even put them on the outline. Thank you very much. This is great. Steve's digging himself out. He made this fantasy relevant already. He's digging himself out of the hole. This is great.
You're only down 4 points now.
Yeah. Do we all agree? Okay, really quickly, and we'll wrap this up. Do you think MLB is going to go after Trevor Bauer in any way? He's obviously the poster boy for this. Steve, let's start with you. Let's get a quick answer. You think he'll get any sort of repercussions here at all?
No.
You think they're headhunting?
Nope.
Justin, you think they're headhunting Trevor Bauer?
I mean, they probably are, because he propped himself up as a guy who was doing this. Like he said, he went out and said, these guys are doing it. I'm going to do it too so I can get paid. And then he went out and did it and got paid. But there's nothing in the CBA that allows them to suspend players for this. So like what's the teeth, right? If you're setting a boundary that has no actual teeth because you can't violate the CBA and suspend guys, then what's like, they're going to do this after guys finish pitching, according to the report. It's like, you to throw them out after the game? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, you can't suspend guys, and if they try to suspend guys, the union's going to go after the owners, and nobody wants that. This is all a dog and pony show, and it's just a waste of time when MLB could be addressing many other things in their game.
Totally agree. Ryan, Trevor Bauer, is he going to be suspended, attacked in any way by MLB?
Nothing much to add. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried. I mean, just to go back to my point of like how much actual teeth does this thing have? If it does have teeth, then yeah, it makes sense to go after Trevor Bauer, who is the kind of self-proclaimed king of spin rate and has really elevated his stock because of that the last few years. But I wouldn't be surprised. But to Justin's point, like, yeah, legally, how much can they do right now? A lot of it, I think, is just positioning for next year.
You kind of touched on it a little bit, Ryan, earlier. The spin on some of these baseballs is mind-blowing. Like, it looks like that wiffle ball commercial that's going around on late night TV. Like, how do you hit this thing? It's unreal. We'll see how this goes forward. I agree totally with Paulo on this. I hope this doesn't turn into this fantasy baseball Twitter investigation. Nobody wants to deal with this. But let's move on. Let's talk about our teams a little bit. It is June. Okay. We are established. We are stuck with who we got in some manner. Ryan, let's stay with you a little bit. How is some of your main event teams, your TGFBI teams? Are solid? Where did you miss in draft season, and how are you accounting for that?
I'd say overall pretty decent. No one really cares exactly how my teams are doing, but middle of the pack to upper third, except for the main event, which has been a struggle. I would say in general, the biggest part that I whiffed on so far is upper tier starting pitching. We've already mentioned Luis Castillo, and I think we'll go a little bit deeper into him, but I was on Luis Castillo entering this season, and that's been a complete disaster. So he was my main event ace, quote unquote. And Tout Wars, my quote unquote ace in this American League only, but it was Kenta Maeda. And then in labor, it was Aaron Nola, who hasn't been relatively that bad, but not elite either. So for me, it's been missing the elite starting pitching tier, and not only just missing those guys, but there's been a lot of success in that second to third round of ADP of starting pitchers. That your Woodruffs, your Burns, your Flaherty. I know Flaherty's on the IL now. But Bauer, there's been a lot of success there, and I just have not hit on those. So I'm kind of playing catch up in terms of pitcher ratios. So that's been my downfall so far that I've got to work on. And it's not easy. Every week in Fab, you look at starting pitchers, and you've got the pickings are slim. So it's tough to make that up if you don't want to go the kind of middle reliever route.
Mr. Paulo, Fantasy Baseball Twitter was banging that drum on your pocket aces. We know that Toby made famous, bat flip crazy. Everybody was going that route, and it doesn't necessarily have played out to it depends who you got, right? Still matters who you got. You can't just take two and move on. Where are you at? How's your squads?
So I'm not doing any main event. I do a couple of the NFBC 50s. They're generally okay. Again, that's not a fob thing, so I can't like fix a bad draft necessarily. But those teams are all sort of top 3-4. They're looking to cash at this point, which is great. Hopefully that holds on. In TGFBI, I'm in like middle of the pack, and then in Raz Slam, which is a sort of a best ball cut line scoring. I decided not to just do pocket aces, man. I went for the ace fecta, and I went triple aces off the top, mainly because I knew I was going to write some articles for Razzball about it and wanted something to write about. So I went Cole, Castillo, Flaherty. Obviously Castillo, huge miss. Cole has been fine. Flaherty has actually been probably the best of the three in some ways until he got hurt. So that team's struggling. Let's just put it that way. And can't really. There is one more. The cut lines have one more fob period this week, and so hopefully I can make up some ground there. But it's ugly. And in TGFBI, like I only play one of that style, the traditional sort of OC style, main event style, and it's when you're not playing a lot of those, it's hard to wrap your head around the strategies of fob and of the, setting the lineups kind of in who and dealing with that tiny little 7-man bench, so I'm not embarrassing myself. Let's put it that way.
Justin, it's strike three for me. I also am struggling with starting pitching in my TGFBI squad. I am also a Luis Castillo owner. Are you going to make it a four-way right now? Are you also a Castillo owner?
I'm not. I have 0 shares of Castillo among my 29 teams this year. And I kind of lucked into it because the reason I faded Castillo isn't the reason he's struggling. It was because I didn't trust the defense behind him. Yeah. You know, they were moving Suarez over to shortstop. He has a lot of ground balls. I did not trust that combination. I did not like the infield defense. And so I went, I'm going to move him down my ranks. I still had him ranked as like a 3rd, 4th round pick, depending on if you're on a 12 or 15 team league. So I wasn't like completely fading him, but I knew I was never going to get him. The place I'm struggling in is stolen bases and saves. I was really high on Trevor Rosenthal. I was really high on Archie Bradley. Those guys have obviously not done anything for me this year. And so those are my biggest weaknesses among my teams. But so far I'm doing okay. Like most of my teams are either middle of the pack or towards the top outside of my TGFBI team, which is absolutely embarrassing itself, which of course it is because my wife is in and she's doing better than I am. So
I was just going to ask
she's come back down. She's come back down a little. We're only about 30 or 40 spots in the overall away from each other now. Because at one point she was 200 spots above me. And I was like, holy shit, I may have to quit fantasy baseball if she beats me. So
that's her plan, man. That's the whole point. That's her plan.
Yeah, apparently. Like she's like, I've been spending time with you. So I'm going to take up your hobby and embarrass you to the point where you quit your hobby. So my main event teams I think are like 5th and 7th. Right now, so they're doing fine. I don't have any major injuries. I was very, very risk adverse this year, and have been lucky not to, get hit with any major injuries on the majority of my teams. So I feel pretty confident about having a pretty decent end of the season as long as things don't go completely off the rails.
Personal opinion, I think you're in really good shape because if you talk about the closer situation, it's just always turning, right? That new closers are coming. My question to you is, what kind of starting pitching is coming? Like, I'm not entirely sure we're going to have guys coming that are going to lift us up.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the difficult part. But, I mean, they're guys that emerge every year, right? So you just have to kind of stay vigilant and look for guys who've got skills that might translate into something and really look for opportunities. We saw what like Tucker Davidson did this week in his co-op. Well, there's an opportunity for him right now in Atlanta, and he was somewhat impressive. We watched, we did a little watch party of his start versus Corbin because we thought we were getting Ian Anderson versus Corbin, and we were really pleasantly surprised. And I know a lot of people are like, well, he walked 5 guys. Well, I mean, twice it was Soto. So you're not really going to bang him up. And he never walked more than 1 in an inning throughout the 5 innings that he went. And so you looked at what he did, and he was being cautious. He didn't want to give up the big inning. So if he got behind in the count, he was much rather put a guy on first and go attack the next guy, which is something I like. So it's a matter of sitting down and going, okay, I have a weakness here. Where's a spot where I can get a little bit back? Because if you lose Castillo or if you drafted Castillo, you're in a huge hole. What you don't want to do is make the hole worse by just throwing 2-start guy after 2-start guy after 2-start guy and getting like Austin Gommard that week where everybody 2-started him on the road and he got crushed, right? So don't make your hole worse. Chip away at it. I think some people are still thinking about the 60-game season we had last year and like, I've got to make up time. There's still 2/3 of the season left. Don't overreact to things right now. Do your work, figure out where you can gain spots little by little and work it that way.
Paulo, we got a little bit of a Luis Castillo narrative going on here, and I got him on down the loud line. Let's just go ahead and talk about it here. Last night, we saw him and Blake Snell kind of bounce back, right? Not completely. Sure. The St. Louis Cardinals don't strike out. I think they're 24th in K rate in MLB. They don't strike out a lot. The strikeouts weren't necessarily there for Castillo. But is this a sign of hope for you?
I mean, look, I'm probably a little biased maybe in that like I said, I have Castillo, have him in a couple places. I don't have any Snell shares this year. There's a reason I don't have any Snell shares. I don't particularly like Blake Snell as a pitcher, and I think that if you own Blake Snell and there's somebody in your league who is willing to act on that start, sell Snell. Snell needs to be sold. I'm hoping that it's bounce back time for Castillo, but everything's sort of been heading the wrong direction with him for a little while now. That the one turnaround is like that's awesome. I'm lucky actually that the place I have him is a best ball scoring format. So when he does well, I can get credit for it and I don't have to worry about it. Right. Obviously not everybody's in that scenario. So,
I think you've gotten credit for him once all year.
Yeah, I think once all year he's, which means he hasn't hurt me. So that's not too bad. But yeah, I think, fingers crossed, obviously. But, no, my feeling about it is hold Castillo and ditch Snell if you can. I don't think that there's much coming from Blake Snell.
Ryan Castillo's velocity was up yesterday on all 3 of his pitches. He looked better. Command was slightly better. Are you holding, praying?
I mean, yeah, you have to. And like I said, that's right. I'm doing in my main event. I'm still starting in most weeks there, just because it's not really just a okay, I picked him in the second round. Like it's a sunken cost. It's a sunken cost fallacy. He does have the track record of being an elite pitcher for, each of the last 3 seasons. So, the optimist in me wants to think he's going to turn around. I think, I don't know. I'm a little bit more optimistic on Snell, who I don't really have any shares of so far, but the whiffs are still there. The strikeouts are still there. The walks have been there, but that's not really characteristic of Snell. So I think out of the 2, I'd probably take Snell over Castillo rest of season, which I did not think would happen this time 2 months ago. The thing that I'm curious on, and Justin kind of brought this up, is it's too early to it may not be too early to take the L on Castillo, but it's too early to, I think, just totally do a retrospective on him. But I just want to know and one of the things I'll be looking at this offseason is just process wise with someone like a Castillo. Was this just a good process versus a bad outcome? What did I miss in my process over someone who has been so reliable and consistently pretty good the last 3 years to just totally tank? The infield defense is one thing that I did not consider. You've got Eugenio Suarez starting at shortstop, and that's really kind of destroyed Castillo's value, especially as a ground ball pitcher. So maybe that's one thing I missed. But the other thing may be so changeup reliant that, when you're and we're seeing that with a Patrick Corbin, who's so slider reliant, maybe when you're so reliant on one of your top secondary pitches, maybe that is a red flag. But that's one of the things I want to do this offseason is kind of just look at process wise with Castillo, who could have seen this coming? And I'd love to hear from the Castillo faders out there. Honestly, I'm in here to learn. What did they see that I did not see during the season that had them avoid this disaster?
The answer is nobody. I think Mason, you had a good point on the infield defense. That makes a lot of sense, right? But the K rate was on a 3-year climb. Heavy ground ball guy, right? Yeah. Literally close to 60% on this guy. Makes no sense at all. I think we've all just praying, just crossing our fingers and praying at this point. It's really wild. Blake Snell, I really question. Justin, maybe you can touch on this a little bit. We're looking at a time, 4 or 5 year period now where we have this complete outlier with Blake Snell. They had the 2018 season where he was just incredible with that really odd BABIP, right? So we know we're getting a lot of strikeouts from this guy, but this appears to be who he is with a weakened lineup yesterday. I don't know if you noticed who they rolled out, right? But he did have a great performance. Maybe he can take that and move along, right?
And I'm going to completely hypothesize because I don't know. Until we hear a pitcher actually say it, there was a little bit of chatter in spring training that some guys didn't like the feel of the new ball. Okay. And I'm wondering if guys like Snell, guys like Castillo are having trouble getting the right grip on certain pitches because Castillo, it is about his changeup right now. And even in last night's start, his biggest issue was his changeup still wasn't very good. Yes, we got added velocity on the fastball, but that changeup wasn't great. And that's why we didn't get a ton of strikeouts along with that great outing. So I don't know that this, start for Castillo changes much. I definitely don't know that this start for Snell changes a whole lot. It's a little bit encouraging that he didn't walk the yard. But you always have to wonder with Snell, is he healthy, right? We've had a lot of injuries over the last few years. One of the reasons I faded Snell was because I felt more comfortable with healthier starting pitchers in that spot as opposed to a guy who I like. I really like Blake Snell, but he just has had a hard time staying on the field the last few years. And so I just kind of faded him at the price. I don't know if we're going to be able to tell. Like I always love doing the retrospectives at the end of the season to kind of go, okay, what did I mess up on? Like, right, where was my, like Ryan said, where was my process flawed that cost me? I think that this is going to be one of those years that is difficult to do that, like last year was, because just like last year, we've never had a season in which we went from 60 games to 162 games. So there's no like historical perspective in the same way that we never had a 60 game season before. There's no historical perspective for doing the retrospective last year. Hopefully we can glean some things, but ultimately I'm not going to rack my brain up too much over it. And I'm also not going to necessarily take every single person in the fantasy industry at their words when they're doing a victory lap on why they got something right.
Potentially on that note, you did talk about the short season. Maybe it's just going to take him a little bit longer to get ramped up this year. The workloads were so drastically different from last year to this year. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with him going forward and some other pitchers. We're going to move on to our next segment. This is going to be more of a compare and contrast head-to-head players for the rest of the season. There's some really interesting names here. I think we'll have fun with this. Mr. Paulo, let's start with Brian Reynolds and Avi Garcia. Okay, like I think a lot of people just faded Pirates in general. Brian Reynolds, I know I popped off on Twitter a couple of times. Like, this is just an empty batting average for me. I had nothing to do with Brian Reynolds. How do you feel about Reynolds versus Avi Garcia?
Yeah, I think if I've got to pick one or the other for the rest of the season, I would go with Garcia. I think Reynolds, the home runs are showing up, I think, in a way that maybe wasn't expected, but when you actually like dig into some of the numbers, like he's not hitting the ball that hard in general. It feels like a little bit of a fluky home run thing. There's a couple that have been bombs, but a lot of just wall scrapers, whereas Garcia is really putting the wood to the ball. And so I think if you're looking at the power being the big difference between them, and that's your concern, then I would definitely go Garcia. Now, obviously Reynolds is an average guy, so it depends on what your team needs. But personally, I just feel more confident that Garcia is going to keep giving you what he's been giving you this year. I feel more confident about that than Reynolds.
Ryan, what do you think about this? When you talk about team concepts or whatever, the Brewers aren't playing very good baseball, and that lineup kind of struggles. Pittsburgh as well. They did get a bump this week with Brian Hayes back. Is this going to help Brian Reynolds?
It absolutely will. I mean, I still think between the two, Garcia is I think a pretty easy choice, especially when you throw in the bags that Garcia provides. The thing that I was kind of, touting this preseason was to kind of target, especially the deeper league that you're in, and Reynolds fits this mold completely, which is kind of why I'm bringing it up. Like the deeper league that you're in, you just need to maximize playing time, maximize plate appearances. And a lot of people look at, or the kind of common narrative is to look at, hitters on good teams in the middle of those lineups. Well, those guys are kind of going early in drafts, where like a Brian Reynolds is obviously on a bad team. Like Pittsburgh is, pretty atrocious, but he's hitting third or fourth every day, and he's going to play every single day in that lineup as long as he's healthy. And that means a lot the deeper that you go. So I'm not really that surprised to see Brian Reynolds' success. Always been a pretty good average guy, and then you kind of lay into a few bombs, and this is what you were kind of getting in his age 26 season. So I'm pretty high on them both. They're both on my mixed labor team, and I'm happy to have them both. I think I just think Garcia, if we're comparing the two, the speed that he brings, he's already got 4 bags and has a pretty green light in Milwaukee, is gonna be him, and he's always been a pretty big StatCast darling as well. So high on both of them. I'd give the slight edge to Garcia, but the Reynolds thing is a pretty good lesson in just kind of trying to maximize playing time, even if it is on a quote unquote terrible team.
You're absolutely right on the StatCast stuff. I'm an Avi Garcia, Ryan. But I'm kind of pissed at Avi right now because he burnt me bad last year. Like
yeah.
Right. He's one of those guys. He's on my list for sure. Because I pointed to him last year. I tweeted him out a bunch. Power speed combo. Late in the drafts, he did nothing. And it appeared like in April, maybe it wasn't going to happen either. He is starting to barrel it up though now, Justin. Are you on this too? Are you Avi Garcia over Brian Reynolds?
Absolutely not. Like, I understand why everybody's going back to like the tried and true Avi Garcia. But in a season like this, where the league batting average is 236, give me the guy hitting like 290. right, that has shown the ability to do this over and over again. Yes, Avisail Garcia might steal you an extra 5, bases rest of the way. But Brian Reynolds is going to get more plate appearances. He has more plate appearances already, and he's going to do that at a way better batting average. And when you're struggling with batting average, which I think everybody is struggling with this year, considering the league average is down to 236, I want the guy who's going to get me that batting average, get me the category that's harder, as opposed to 4 stolen bases or 5 stolen bases rest of the way.
That's really interesting. Brian Reynolds coming into today, 292, 389, 503 slug. I definitely didn't see that. And like we said, Avi Garcia, StatCast, career high, 91.2 exit velocity. We know a lot of that's trending up, but he's barreling also 12.4. So he's actually putting the wood to it, just like Ryan said. Let's move on. These two guys, I was a huge CJ Cron guy as soon as he signed in Colorado. I don't think I'm any different than any of you guys on that. But Nate Lau, highly touted prospect out of Tampa, never really got a shot there. Justin, let's stay with you. Nate Lau or CJ Cron?
I'm going to go CJ Cron. He's just a known quantity. The problem with Lowe is his swing is really, really long at times, in that he'll struggle to make contact. We're going to see kind of the ups and downs and ebbs and flow with his profile. And I think Cron playing Colorado is about as safe as they come. And the Rockies are going to bungle this, right? Like everybody expects Cron to get traded at the deadline. They're not going to do it. They're going to fuck it up somehow, right? So he's going to continue to hit in Colorado probably all year because they won't get the right deal at the deadline for some reason. But, I'm sure the other guys are going to take Lowe because he's going to be playing, full-time all year, and Cron could get traded to a contender and sit some. But give me the guy who's playing in Colorado with that prodigious power.
Steve, what do you think? Nate Lau got off to a hot start in Texas, slowed down in May, literally only 2 home runs and 36 Ks so far in May for Nate Lau. CJ Cron ain't exactly lighting it up yet either in Colorado.
Yeah, I think it's funny when Justin brings up, that the league average batting average is down and that's a reason to grab the guys with the higher average. I actually think that gives you the leeway to take the guys that get you the other stats and might hurt you in average because everybody's hurting, right? So the fact that Garcia hits 240, the fact that Lau hits 240-ish, right? Versus, Cron is gonna hit a little better than that. I don't think that hurts as much. So I want Lau. He hits the ball harder. He's gonna strike out. Yeah, his contact's not as good as Cron. I get that, but he hits the ball harder. He steals you some bases. He might be slumping a little right now, but that's the guy for me, and I don't even think it's close.
Ryan, what do you think? I think Tampa Bay wasn't really sure about Nate Lau and his splits against lefties, right? He's getting the opportunity, just like everyone said, to play every day. His average in May was down to 220. Hot start. Now he's cold. What do you like, Lau or CJ Cron?
I'm going Cron. I love some disagreement on the podcast. That always makes it for good theater. The thing that hasn't been brought up, and really good points so far by both Justin and Steve, is the Coors is such a monthly park factor thing. Like Coors in April is atrocious to hit in. Coors in May some years is atrocious to hit in. Coors in the summer is an absolute, garden to hit in. And CJ Cron, for me, I mean, we do the we do the baseball forecaster for Baseball HQ every year, and we put an upside of Cron, given the batting average and the power upside of an upside of 40 homers and 100 RBI. Like that's probably out the window at this point. But I think on a prorated basis, I think Cron, once the weather heats up, and Colorado had high 70s highs this week when the team was in at home all week. I think summer in Coors is really going to help CJ Cron. I think that's only going to ameliorate the skills that he has shown in the past. He was one of my top breakout targets in Minnesota, and unfortunately took a ground ball off the knee and ended his season. But I think I'm really high on CJ Cron. I think he's going to have a really good summer here in Colorado when it heats up. Lau in Texas, yeah, I just think he's kind of one of those kind of commodities at this point, a low batting average, high power. That has some value, but I think Cron can do the same thing as Lau, plus out hit him by 40 or 50 points in batting average.
I actually agree with you, Ryan, on that. And thank you for the note. I didn't actually know the Coors played that way. I think I just put it in this bubble of an amazing ballpark and just walked away. I had no idea that it's when it was cold in April. That makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah, yep. Thanks for letting me know that apparently Texas is a terrible hitter's park. I had no idea. Thanks, Ryan.
Didn't used to be.
Let's stay with the lows, but we'll go to Brandon Lowe. This guy had an amazing short season in 2020, right, Ryan? Just absolutely crushed the ball. He still can barrel it, okay, but he has definitely regressed against lefties. We got Brandon Lowe versus Nick Solak. Again, Nick Solak, huge April. Everyone was waving that flag a little bit, but kind of tapered off a little bit in May. Who do you like at second base, Brandon Lowe or Nick Solak?
This is tricky because going from Low to Low and trying to pronounce them both. There's a third one too. So I don't know.
That's another low.
Yeah, that's another low. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's Nate Lowe's brother, Josh Lowe.
Okay.
Kind of like. Yeah.
Now we're all learning.
Yeah, now we're all learning. Kind of like the third Manning hasn't gone all the way through. But between these two, I'm going to go Solak. I like the power speed combo. I know he's only been 2 for 4 so far on the bases, but Solak's going to play. He's playing in again, kind of repeating myself, but this is almost kind of a thing for Nate Lowe is the Texas lineup. He's going to play every day in a kind of a blah lineup, but I'm going to go Solak over Lowe. I like the power speed combo that he's shown. Started off really hot, kind of dipped a little bit since then, but he's my pick here.
7 bombs for Solak in April, 1 since. Justin, are you on to Solak or do you like Brandon Lowe's power?
I like both guys actually. So I do have teams with both guys on it. If I'm comparing the two, one really sucks against lefties and one really sucks against righties. Give me the guy who's better against right-handed pitching, and that's Brandon Lowe. So there is a concern that Lowe could lose playing time, right? If the Rays do decide to bring up Vidal Brujan and Wander Franco, they like playing games with those kind of guys too. And I think they'll still figure out a way to get Lowe into the field, even though he struggled this year. They're still playing him fairly regularly. I think he's going to be fine. He's been a little bit unlucky so far this year. But I do like Solak, especially when he's up against the lefty. And he's not going to lose any playing time in Texas. So like both guys, but I'm going to kind of lean towards Lowe.
Steve, Brandon Lowe has 4 hits versus lefties. It's pretty significant. Okay. Are you onto this, though?
No.
He's already losing playing time in Tampa as well.
Yeah. No, I'm actually kind of surprised. Justin is has Brandon Lowe raised above the Mendoza line yet? I think he's still at about 197, 188, something like that. Yeah, that's amazing. That's an incredible batting average. No, I think that basically I believe Solak's speed will hold on more than Lowe's power will. I think the playing time thing is part of it. I'm totally on Solak. I liked Solak before the season, still do. Yeah, Brandon Lowe, I think that there's a little more of a flukiness to what he's been able to achieve with the power versus what Solak's balance looks like to me. So I like Solak for the rest of the year.
Lowe has more stolen bases than Solak.
He does right now, but, I by 1. So
he's still got more.
He does.
Hey, and Lowe is hitting 357 in the month of June.
Okay, fair enough.
Mason's bringing the stats. He's getting the points right now. Let's go.
June 5th here. I like it.
Steve, let's stay with you. We're moving on to Rotoguts. Our friend Rotogut Vlad. His Christian Yelich pick is this year Austin Meadows, and it looks like he's turned things around. So let's compare and contrast both these players right now. We obviously know Yelich has this back pain. He's a top round player, a first round player. A lot of people are being burnt, but going forward from here to the end of the season, are Yelich or Meadows?
I think I'm Meadows. I think that Yelich is, the injury stuff kind of is a little scary moving forward. And I think that Meadows has proven that he is putting it together. All of his StatCast numbers are looking kind of better. They're trending better as time goes on. And he's just really hitting the ball and he's hitting it hard. He walks, I think just generally, I think Meadows is proving to be the guy that Vlad thought he would be. And Yelich's back injury is pretty scary, I think, moving forward.
These are two totally complete players, Ryan, in our game. It's unfortunate what's happening with Christian Yelich because he was peaking, just incredible player before this back issue started to flare up. Where are you on Christian Yelich versus Austin Meadows?
I mean, that's the problem for me is the back issue. Like that, I mean, that stuff that just doesn't go away that easily. You know, I mean, Yelich has already hit the IL twice with the same thing. Like maybe this second stint they were super careful with him, and he actually has hit two bombs since he came back. Like there are signs that Christian Yelich is somewhat returning to normal, but I just think the floor of Austin Meadows is so much higher than Yelich right now. Like I'm going Austin Meadows. Meadows is one of those guys who 2020 for me is just a complete throwaway. I mean, got had the oblique, had COVID, like just never got off to a good start. I love the 2019 season that Austin Meadows put together. Again, and I always go back to the forecaster, but I wrote him up in the 2020 forecaster and said he'd be a first-round pick entering the 2021 season. And obviously that did not happen because of everything that happened in 2020, but those skills are still there. And I think we're starting to see that with Meadows. I think the 244 batting average that he has so far, he's a lot better hitter than that. He's got over 10 home runs. He runs a little bit, like everything's there. Yes, he's on the Rays who likes to platoon, but Meadows is one of the few guys who they just roll out there every day. And that's, he's got all the tools that I like to see in somebody. And yeah, I think Meadows is a star in the making and has the prospect pedigree, and we're starting to see that show through in the majors. So Meadows over Yelich. Yelich just has, that floor is just so low for me. He could easily go on the IL in 2 weeks from now with another back issue, and then you're kind of toast. So
Justin, Ryan likes Meadows. Steve likes Meadows. The Pirates didn't like Meadows. They didn't see it.
We're glad.
No, they liked Meadows quite a bit. They just liked Chris Archer, and they thought they had a chance to win a World Series. It was just a really, really stupid trade, in retrospect.
Hey,
but
I liked Chris Archer way back in the day as well.
They thought they were going to try to get a title, and I mean, in Pittsburgh, that's a hard thing to do. So, I understand why they made the move. This is a tough one because I really like both guys. Both guys have some really big red flags as well, right? Because you guys have already talked about Yelich's back. That is the red flag for him, right? Is he healthy? He's got 2 home runs, 2 stolen bases since he came back. He's also hitting below the Mendoza line since he came back. So, that's not super encouraging. And they're giving him extra days off, which will start to accumulate and take away from his, potential to be a dominating force in fantasy. Meadows, on the other hand, is hitting 167 against lefties this year on a team that likes to platoon. I think he's going to start losing some opportunities against lefties if he doesn't start to figure them out. And he's got his own injury track record. He lost a lot of time in the minor leagues. It's why his development was a lot slower than people expected, because he had a back issue, because he had a bunch of reoccurring injuries. And we saw injuries last year with him. We saw injuries in his rookie season with him. So I think the idea that he's got a safer floor than Yelich is a little bit of cherry picking. That being said, give me the guy who's hot right now. I'm going to take Meadows along with you guys. But if there's going to be one guy that really, really busts out this year, it's got to be Christian Yelich, a guy who could steal 50 bases, and hit 50 home runs like this. He has superstar potential. We've seen it before. He was a top 2 pick coming into last year. I'm not closing the door on Christian Yelich at all.
I found it really weird when I started to look into Christian Yelich a little bit. 253, 385, slugging 367, but with a max exit velocity of 115. We know this guy has the power. It's still there. It's just not falling for him right now, right? Let's move on. Clean sweep for Austin Meadows right there. Let's move on to some pitchers, some really interesting pitchers right here. Nathan Eovaldi, the Boston Red Sox, and Zach Eflin. Justin, let's stay with you. Eovaldi was all over Ryan's Bloom boards, right? I can't wait to get to him. I'm sure he's his guy. Were you on Eovaldi at all? And if so, how do you compare him to Zach Eflin?
I was on Eovaldi, but the problem with Eovaldi is the same problem that we're talking about with Yelich, right? It's staying on the field. The dude just never stays on the field for a full season. So you love him in the short term. And in the long term, you're going to have to move on to someone else as soon as he gets hurt. So if we're talking about a shallow league, a 10 or a 12-team league where there's replacement value on the waiver wire, I'm all over Eovaldi. And in a deeper format, I prefer Eflin because I feel much more comfortable that he'll be pitching in August as opposed to Eovaldi. So it's a tough question to answer. I play in mostly 15-team leagues, so I'm going to go with Eflin. But if you're listening to this and you play in 10, 12-team leagues, you probably should go to Eovaldi because the upside is huge, and there'll be something on the waiver wire when he eventually does get hurt.
Mr. Paulo, 3.78 ERA for Nathan Eovaldi, 2.39 FIP. For Zach Eflin, 4.10 ERA, 3.21 FIP. Something kind of pointing to better things for Nathan Eovaldi. Are you onto this at all?
Yeah, I think I prefer Eovaldi here. I think that, Justin makes a decent point about kind of like league depth and planning for that. However, shit happens. Like, you can never fully plan for that. So I feel like you get the better player and you roster the better player anytime you can. And I think Eovaldi is clearly, when healthy, the better player, the better pitcher than Eflin. So I think you roster Eovaldi, you play Eovaldi. I was actually a little surprised when you showed us, the versus this or this. This was the pairing I looked at and went, this is clearly take Eovaldi. Like, how is this even an argument? For one thing, whether or not we like it, wins are still something that pitchers need to get us, and he's gonna get them or at least have a better chance at them than Eflin is, right? Playing on the Red Sox versus the Phillies is a huge difference right now. Their strikeouts are very similar. The ERAs, like you pointed them out, they're both not spectacular, but Eovaldi's got Eflin there. Eovaldi generally doesn't get hit as hard as Eflin does, and that's what translating to that ERA difference. And yeah, I gotta go Eovaldi, especially because of the situation, the place that he's pitching.
Eovaldi's even seemingly had some bad luck so far with Boston. Even if you've watched the game the other day, just bungled some ground balls there, gave up some runs, unearned, not against Eovaldi, of course. But Ryan, you were obviously onto this guy way back in December, maybe November. How do you feel about Nathan Eovaldi versus Zach Eflin?
Yeah, I mean, I can't go against the brand here and go against Eovaldi. He's been interesting. The reason why I was so high on Eovaldi is just the depth of his arsenal. He's got the four seam, he's got the curveball, he's got the cutter, he's got the slider, he's even got a split finger, and they all miss bats. Like, that's a really rare arsenal of having 4 to 5 pitches that all miss bats. And that's what really brought me on to Eovaldi. The thing that obviously he was so cheap in drafts is, for good reason. And Justin brought that up, is the injury. The thing that I have always kind of said is if a pitcher's healthy right now, he's healthy, and that's the greatest indicator for what we're doing. I mean, starting pitching and pitching in general is so fluid in terms of who's hurt, whose velocity is down, and that sort of thing. Like, Eovaldi hasn't been injured in 2 years, and he's still throwing over 97. Like, to me, he's a healthy pitcher, and I think he's going to stay healthy throughout the season. So I could be wrong on that, but I'm going to go Eovaldi here. I like I said, the arsenal, the luck thing with Eovaldi has been really interesting because he's only given up like 1 or 2 home runs all season. So the home run luck for Eovaldi has been super, advantageous. However, when you look at the BABIP and the strand rate, it's been super unlucky for the guy. So, it kind of all washes out. I think he's a mid-3 ERA guy with some strikeout upside. And to Steve's point, like, Boston can hit the crap out of the ball, so I expect some wins. So I'm going Eovaldi over Eflin, who just had his last start skipped in the rotation. I don't know if he's hurt or not, but maybe Philadelphia's just shuffling some things around. But like I said, the healthiest starting pitcher is the one who hasn't been hurt in the last year or so, and that's Eovaldi for me.
All good points all around. Eovaldi's, I think he backs out at 183 innings like 4 years ago, right? We haven't seen him healthy for a long time, so it's totally normal to be pessimistic on his health, but we're only healthy until we're not, especially when it comes to starting pitchers. We were going to do a segment on Stanton, Mondesi, and Strasburg, but man, it's just like beating yourself off the, just over and over and over with these guys.
I don't think it's good audio to have us all cry for 5 minutes, man. That's like a terrible idea.
I'll laugh. I don't have any of them.
Yeah, sometimes you need a good cry.
It's therapeutic. That's true.
It's healthy.
Get it out. Yeah. Let's turn it up. Let's turn it up to smiles, though. Okay, let's talk about Adolis Garcia and Jazz Chisholm. I didn't see this coming. I got one DC share of Jazz Chisholm thanks to someone else. It wasn't on me, okay? I'll just be honest with that. But, Ryan, let's stay with you. Adolis Garcia had like a 40% strikeout rate the last 3 years. I was actively telling people this is garbage. Do not invest in this. And here we are, 138 WRC plus.
It's wild. I mean, it kills me. So, and I know nobody really cares, but in AL Tout Wars, we were, the league is so deep that when you have an injury, like you're just trying to fill a slot. And this was like the second week of the season, and I had an outfield injury, and Adolis Garcia is available because, of course, he is. Bid like $24 in $1,000 Fab League and missed out by like $7. And an AL only 12 team, like it just every time I see him hit a home run or steal a base, it absolutely kills me. That said, between the two, I'd probably go Jazz Chisholm. I mean, similar kind of plate profiles. Chisholm for me has the stolen base edge, and I don't know the age thing with Garcia, like. Yes, he's carried it this far. Like he could absolutely carry this throughout. But to me, like that, I just trust kind of the prospect pedigree of Chisholm. I mean, Miami gave up Zach Gallen to get Chisholm. Like they obviously believe in the guy, and he's showing why they did that this season. So I'll go Chisholm just because of the stolen base upside. I think he's got a little bit more power, and I just think regression wise for Garcia, but I could absolutely be wrong on this, and Garcia continue this forward. But both great stories and both great for the game. I will say that.
Great point on the Gallen trade. We were all scratching our heads like, what is Jeter doing in Florida? That makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. Gallen's thrived, obviously, unfortunately, with the injuries this year. But Justin, Ryan kind of pointed to it. Jazz still has a 34% strikeout rate. Adolis seemingly has fixed this K rate. It's 28%. But apparently that plays these days, right?
You know the meme from The Office where Pam is holding up, the paintings, and she's like, it's the same picture. That's what you're doing right here, right? It's the same picture. These guys both have enormous strikeout rates, a lot of power. They've got speed. Give me the guy who is younger, who I feel has a better stranglehold on a job if he does struggle in Chisholm, because he is part of that future in Miami. But, I mean, at this point, you're playing with house money. If you got these guys on your team, you just roll with them until the wheels fall off. I think Adolis Garcia's wheels are going to fall off a little bit sooner, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he just pops out of nowhere and continues to make this work, because lots of guys are making a 30-plus strikeout rate work at the major league level with the way the game's being played right now. So there's no reason to think he can't, and the Rangers seem to like it.
Steve, Ryan, and Justin both like youth here. You on board with that?
How old do you guys think Adolis Garcia is? He's 28. Like, he's not 35. This is not Nelson Cruz we're talking about. Like, this guy hits the ball harder than Jazz Chisholm could dream of hitting the ball. Jazz is getting his home runs, he's whatever, but like, if you actually look at the StatCast profile, the hard hit rate, the barrels, the exit velocity, they are opposites. This is not the pictures are the same. No, they're not. Like, Adolis Garcia has actual legit wood on
beauty in his picture.
Well, that's true. Yeah. No, they both got speed. Obviously, Jazz is a little more of elite at the speed, whatever. But like, yeah, I got to go Adolis Garcia here. I don't think first of all, neither of them have the proven track record of doing what they're doing. So in either case, you're taking a flyer on somebody. Well, I mean, look, you already have, because if you've got them now, you already took the flyer. But the point is, you had to take a chance on somebody who didn't do this before, right? And so either way, that's a risk you're taking. But I think if I really had the choice, do you want Jazz Chisholm or do you want Adolis Garcia for the rest of the season? I want Garcia every time, 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. And it's just because the overall profile is just significantly better with the hard hitting and the power numbers. And he's almost as speedy as Jazz. Not quite. I'll give that. Chisholm's got the speed, but it's not that far off.
Real quickly, I'll give you a chance at this one. Steve, let's stay with you here. In trade leagues, home leagues, what have you, are you dangling both of these players, or are you willing to ride it out?
I would be keeping both of them. If I had either of these guys, I'd be holding on to them and riding them out. Yeah, for sure.
Ryan, Adolis, Jazz, you going to dangle them a little bit with your league mates? I see you got some injuries over there. Maybe I got this guy.
I'd give him a little dangle, especially again, most of my teams, I need some pitching help. Like it makes sense to kind of look at what they've done so far this year and see what you can get for them. I mean, I already kind of made the point, like Garcia could keep this up, but chances are he won't. And with Chisholm, like, yes, he has the prospect pedigree, but this is a game of adjustments and pitchers are going to see him for the second or third time and start to adjust. So yeah, I would absolutely engage in some trade negotiation, especially if I had to fill some holes on the pitching side.
I'm always willing to dangle anyone and feel out people, feel my league mates out, right? I got to know where they're at, right? Justin, you onto this at all? Or are you just going to hold Adolis Garcia and Jess Chisholm?
I mean, you always want to take the temperature of your league, right? But the problem with guys like this that kind of come out of nowhere is often they don't have the name that other people who aren't paying really close attention are willing to trade. Like, if you could get like a third or fourth round pitcher or even a fifth round pitcher for one of these guys, you do it in a heartbeat, right? But how many leagues have you been in with guys who aren't like fanatics that are willing to trade a guy like, I don't even know, like Blake Snell for Adolis Garcia? It just would never happen, right? So chances are you're not going to be able to. And like I said, I have no problem just riding this, gravy train until the wheels fall off because you got him for nothing.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Justin. And if you are in a league with the Fanatics, they're probably not going to touch any of this anyways, right?
Trades aren't allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's stay with you, Justin, on this one. It's probably near and dear to your heart. Anthony DeSclafani there in San Francisco getting it done, looking pretty good. Nick Pivetta. We've been talking about him for like 5 years now, but it looks like he's piecing it together for Boston. He's one of the main reasons they've been able to play such good ball there on the East Coast. So you're going to take your guy, Anthony DeSclafani, or you like Nick Pivetta?
Give me the guy pitching in the National League, pitching in Oracle Park, the guy that hasn't burnt us all a million times over and over and over again, showing the same kind of skills that are going to eventually lead us to be burnt over and over and over again. This one shouldn't be particularly close. You're riding with Pivetta for right now, but it's always just a scary proposition, especially in Boston as that weather starts to heat up there. The balls are going to fly out. You're pitching the AL East. This is ultimately not going to end well. You're going to be Charlie Brown on your back at some point.
Steve, I kind of agree with Justin on this one, but Nick Pivetta is holding my TGFBI team up a little bit as I bench Luis Castillo. So I found it really interesting when I looked into both these guys, both Pivetta, 4.13 Sierra, Anthony DeSclafani, 4.18 Sierra. Okay. So these guys are really interesting, really close. Do you have any of these guys, and which one do you like better?
I actually have 0 shares of either of them, so I got no pony in this race. But if I'm going with one of these at this point, I'm going with Justin. I think he's right. DeSclafani's the guy. Park matters. The fact is, people just do not hit hard balls off of DeSclafani in general. Like his max exit velocity is in the I'm reading that backwards. Now I'm realizing I'm reading that backwards. He's the one that does give up the hard hits. Either way, no, I like DeSclafani better, just in general because of the ballpark. I think like Justin, had the right idea here. Like Pivetta, I don't know. You try not to hold grudges in fantasy baseball, but you end up holding grudges in fantasy baseball, and I have a grudge against Nick Pivetta from previous years, and so give me DeSclafani this year.
I got him cheap, Ryan. I got him real cheap because nobody else wanted them. So he's holding my TGFBI team up, like I said. Where are you at on these two?
Sorry for your TGFBI team, but I'm going to go DeSclafani. Speaking of holding grudges, Justin, you were in the now defunct RDI, but I traded Pivetta to get Pivetta for Jack Flaherty, and I'm holding a grudge.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, but grudges aside, I think DeSclafani's the play here. Well, just one thing. I mean, a couple things that haven't been hit on. Like, I do think there is, there's that term, something in the water in, San Francisco, or whatever the term is, or the location is. But I think there is something going on with the pitching approach as a rotation in San Francisco. I buy into that kind of thing. The other thing with DeSclafani, and I put this out a few days ago, is so much of his ERA is inflated because of one bad start. He gave up 10 earned runs on May 23rd. After that start, he had a 3.56 ERA without that start, and obviously it's easy to cherry pick and throw your best, throw your worst start away. But without that start, he's got a 2.17 ERA. Like, everyone has a bad day at the office, and I think we saw that with Esclafani. So because of that, because of the kind of the consistency that he's shown, except for that one day, and then what San Francisco's doing with that entire rotation, I'm going to go with him over Pivetta, who I think his Cinderella's running out, and the pumpkin's going to show here soon.
No takers for Pivetta. I don't blame you there. I really don't. Let's go ahead and recap our score here a little bit. Then we'll move into our 3 of 5 section. This is where people have been totally surprised, and I kind of expect that some of these categories are a little difficult, a little shockingly difficult. Steve Paulo, we got you with 11 points right now. You're right behind Ryan with 13. I was really stingy with points today. I apologize for that. I was getting into the conversation. Justin Mason's bringing the energy and bringing the stats. He's got 14 points. Okay.
So without my 5 point negative at the start, I would be in first. You guys are terrible. You're just awful
brought it
people.
early. You brought it early.
Good God.
So 3 of 5, just for the listeners. I'm going to give you a category. You're going to try to give me 3 of the top 5. A couple of these categories I extended a little bit because of ties in that category. I'm going to go ahead and give you the points. Okay, Steve, let's go ahead and start with you.
Wait. Is this season to date? Just in May? What are we? Is this the season to date, or just in the last month, or what are we doing?
Thank you for the clarification. It is the last 30 days. Okay, I did nail it down to the last 30 days. I'm going to start with a kind of a difficult one, to be honest with you. But in the last 30 days, WRC plus top 5 players. These guys have been red hot, and maybe you move on to this a little bit.
All right. I think Tatis has got to be on there, I hope. Maybe Semien and Castellanos.
You have 2. You have 2.
Oh,
Ryan,
my God.
Can you get 3 of 5?
So I can piggyback off him. I'll go.
They didn't say which 2.
I'll go Tatis, Castellanos, and there's no time limit on this, right? This is good air time. We
can start crying like Justin said it.
I'll go Goldschmidt.
No. Ryan only had 1, Justin. Can you give me 3 of 5?
All right. So I'm going to go Tatis, Semien, Austin Meadows.
And Semien has been red hot. 192 WRC plus over the last 30 days. Steve was right also with Nick Castellanos. Ryan, I think you got that one. Max Muncy also on fire.
I knew it because that's who killed Desclafani.
I'm a little surprised nobody guessed Vlad right here.
Oh yeah.
That would have been the smart one.
But the total shocker, Adam Frazier in Pittsburgh, 184 WRC plus over the last 30 days. I couldn't believe it either.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm a detour on this 3 of 5. Justin, we'll start with you. This is a little different, but it's been hilariously pathetic that people haven't been able to figure this out. Pirates rotation, give me 3 of 5.
Oh God, 3 of 5. Okay, Chad Kuhl, JT Brewbreaker, and holy crap.
Exactly.
Brewbreaker. Holy shit, I can't believe I'm going to blank on this.
Steve, we're moving on to Steve.
Dude,
Steve,
I don't know.
3 of 5.
I don't know 1, so you just move on. I don't know. I have no idea who pitches for the Pirates.
Ryan Bloomfield, give me 3 of 5 Pirates rotation, please.
Tyler Anderson.
Oh, that's the one. God damn it.
Brubaker and Kuhl. There we go.
Well done, sir.
I like going
done,
last in these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, last is good.
On that note, let's start with you then, Ryan Bloomfield. In the last 30 days, who is leading in saves? Now, this is a longer category. There is a tie there at the bottom. Saves the last 30 days, please.
I'll go Melanson. I'll go Reyes and Kimbrel.
Boom, nailed it right off the bat. Well done. I'm going to go ahead and Liam Hendricks with 9, Kimbrel with 8, Melanson 8, Diaz has 7, Jansen 7, Reyes 7, and Brad Hand. That shocked me. He actually has 7 in the last 3 days. Yep. Justin, let's go back to the bats. Home runs in the last 30 days. This is also an extended category.
All right, home runs in the last 30 days. I mean, Vlad's got to be on there. Acuna's got to be on there. And Tatis has got to be on there.
1 of 3. You had 1 of 3.
Whoa.
Steve Paulo, home runs last 30 days.
Let's go Adolis Garcia, Muncy, and Vlad.
Top 3 even. Top 3. Well done, man. Steve. Well done, Steve. Let me get to that point. All right. I love this so much. We've done like 4 of these episodes, a couple last year. Ryan, let's start with you. Orioles starting rotation, 3 of 5.
Do I have to name first name and last name?
No, sir. Give me something, please.
Right, Perez. Means. And. Oh, good Lord.
We're pros at this. We're fantasy analysts, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Steve. What do you got?
Yeah.
I mean, there's Means and there's Matt Harvey. And then there's Means and Matt Harvey. That's all I got.
Justin, Mason, it would make me so happy if you can get 3 of 5 Orioles starting pitchers right now.
Oh, I mean, Keegan Aiken, John Means, Matt Harvey, Jorge Lopez.
I got them all.
That's what I was thinking of, Lopez. Oh.
Were you looking on a screen there, Justin?
Nope, I just wrote it down.
Oh, you wrote it down.
I had to write it down because I had to go, all right, what's the actual rotation here?
Thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. June's triple play champion is Justin Mason. You did great.
Surprising.
Brought the energy, brought the stats, and did really well in 3 of 5. Thank you so much. Justin, how would you like to sign us off for tonight?
I mean, I just want to, thank God for giving me the inspiration to remember the Orioles rotation. I really, really appreciate it. But go follow Ryan and Steve on Twitter. Go follow all their amazing work. And don't worry about me.
It's at Steve Paulo, just there. StevePaulo. Steve, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Ryan Bloomfield at Ryan BHQ. Is that correct, Ryan?
That's correct.
Thank you as well for being here. I really do appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.